Dolores Manor sat atop a tall hill. Gazing out, the city stretched before me. Countless columns of smoke rising from the buildings, the people scurrying about like so many ants. From up here, I had the perfect view of the bustle of the city. But it's too far away to feel the life breathing through it. To think I used to be one of those tiny little specks. Thousands of people lived there. They had families, jobs, friends, hobbies. But as much as I was cognizant of that fact, I no longer grasped on it on anything more than a conceptual level. It was incredible just how much my view of the world changed in merely a year's time. I'm going to go out into the world, I said. Thought I'd claw my way to the top of the ladder would let me see it. Let me experience it. That with power, I could have the whole world at my fingertips. But reality wasn't so simple. This sure isn't what I was looking for. Hell, I feel like the chain just gotten tighter around my neck. There's no way to truly grasp the view from this height without climbing up and seeing it for yourself. And that was exactly where I was a year ago, blind to the reality of life in the upper echelons, fantasizing about a world that didn't exist. Unlike the me of the past, I did have the satisfaction of feeling like I was accomplishing big things. Was that really worth cutting myself off from all my friends? Did those achievements really justify a bloody revolution? Or, I suppose I should ask, was this work valuable enough to me to justify it all? Reminiscing about days long gone wasn't going to help anything, and in fact, only served to cause me pain. I couldn't return to that time. This is where my quest for power brought me, and now I had to live out my days as lord of this land, telling myself day after day that it was far better than being a powerless slum rat. God, I've been so busy these past few weeks. My eyes are... One day, I'll show you the world. Morgana?
Sorry, I keep forgetting to unmute.
Do you ever get tired of saying that?
You gotta think big. Dream. The world's changing all around us. A life just fighting to make it day by day is hardly a life at all. I don't want to spend the rest of my days confined to this tiny little corner of the world.
Well, try not to let your dreams grow so big they crush you.
I'm sure I'll be fine. I'll just have you sing for me if it ever gets to be overwhelming.
Why would I be there?
Why wouldn't you? It's hard to show you the world if I don't bring you with me. Knowing you still won't know where you want to go. So I'll bring you with me. We can find a place for you together. Pretty good deal, huh?
I don't need to see the world. All I want is...
Those off for a second there. Feels like those days were an eternity ago. I'll need to see the world. All I want is what? Morgana? What were you trying to tell me? Crap, who was playing Paul before?
I think it was Jordan.
Okay,
I think.
Go for it, Jordan.
Oh. Man, it feels like a whole different place here now.
Avalon, I think you were Tio.
You think? Looks like the same old nasty dump it's always been.
Nico, you were Nicola.
He's talking about the whole city, you dope?
Exactly. Things are on the up and up in the city proper, but we ain't seen a scrap of it down here. The heck's up with that? All the new shops spilling about past the city border, the highway into town turned into a full-blown bazaar.
Ooh, sounds nice.
Is there anything in that damn head of yours? Just saying, how come we're still living like rats if they got enough spare coin to build all the market space? Ew, with all these damn immigrants coming in, slums are even bigger than before.
You know, I never thought much of it till now, but you're right. The gang's been a lot busier lately with all the drifters.
And Jacopo, our Lord Barnier, ain't showed his mug down here even once since he took over. I mean, I get that the bloody Lord can't spend all day hanging out in the slums, but he could at least visit. Instead, he spent all his time buddying up with the rich folk.
Hey, we used to be such good friends, too.
I wonder if he's planning to just not bother with that at all.
I hope not, but that's sure what it looks like. You think he'd at least throw us a bone, rather than let the merchants and upper class take coin baths in his coffers. Guess when he became one of them, he became just like them too.
Feels like we're the exact same place we were a year ago. He's so different than the old Barnier.
Ugh.
Oh, crap. Nika?
Psst, psst, psst.
God. Oh, it's you. So, you find anything?
Oh, Avalon.
Yep, got the proof I was looking for. Would you be so kind as to now give me a job like this again? I'd be hanged thrice over if the nobles found out I was sniffing around in their business.
Oh, quit being such a bitch. You didn't steal nothing or kill anyone. You're fine.
A man's secrets can sometimes be worth more than his life. But on to business. Your suspicions were correct.
Well, fuck me sideways. Here's your pay. Take it and piss off.
Nice doing business. Hey, hold up now. I risked my neck to get that for you, and this is all I get in return?
What's the problem with that, you little bitch?
No, sir.
Don't you worry. You'll get your fair due shortly.
These construction costs are really starting to pile up. One moment. Can we put the manor repairs off until we've taken care of more of pressing matters? Like using that money to help the poor?
The Lord and his residents are the face of his land. If you wish for this city to continue thriving upon the fruits of your relationships with the surrounding realms, you must maintain a minimum level of respectability, my lord. Merchants in particular are merciless judges of appearance. Of this you can be certain. No respectable merchant will do business on equal terms with a city whose lord refuses to take care of his own home.
I get that, but still, it's so much money.
These are necessary expenses. To acquire the resources required to aid the lower class, we must increase the rate of production. Efforts must begin at the top and gradually work down. You must not be in such a great rush, my lord. The work you are performing is on a much larger, longer scale than perhaps that of which you are accustomed.
You have a point. Then let the construction continue. I'm definitely coming to see just how crucial a bit of embellishment can be to surviving in high society. Every engagement is like throwing myself into a lion's den. Everyone surrounding me, measuring me up. They question my pedigree. Some with their eyes, some with their mouths. Some even attempt to dig up dirt on me in order to tilt the scales in their favor. Oh yeah, there's that one time when I was straight up shouted at right to my face. You're no more damn noble than any of those older rats whose nest you crawled out of, if I recall. Not that he was wrong. I took the throne by force. It's only natural that people are going to have their suspicions. That I came from the slums is just the icing on the cake. I'm damn lucky if condescension is the worst treatment I get on a first encounter. Then there are all the distant relatives Barnier that slip through the cracks, slithering back up to assert their right to the land. There are a lot more people out to get me than I first anticipated.
You remain strong, my lord.
I will always be strong. If I so much as let those wolves smell weakness, they'll pounce all over me. Like hell I'm gonna let that happen. I won't have time to work on helping the poor if I have to spend my days fending off packs of bloodthirsty nobles. I must always appear strong, under any circumstances. I, of all people, should know just how easily a lord can be dethroned. I'll be next to leave even the slightest opening. I have to do whatever it takes to make sure that's not my future.
Perhaps you should get some rest, my lord.
Excuse me? Are you insane? I have to review the construction budget so that...
Allow me to handle that. I will get you something to drink. Perhaps a glass of that southern wine you are so fond of. It is quite sweet, perfect for alleviating built-up fatigue.
I'm not fatigued.
Come now, please take this request from an overly concerned consul, my lord.
Fine. You win. It's hard to believe it's only been a year and a half. I feel like we go way back.
Oh, we do see each other every day, after all.
I'm starting to crave some variety, to be honest. Never found a good opportunity to ask you this, but...
Yes?
Do you have any family? Because if you do, you're more than welcome to have them live here.
I appreciate your concern, my lord, but they have all passed away.
All of them?
Indeed. My entire family was eradicated at the previous lord's order. Once, and only once, I offered him my humble opinion. So infuriated was he by my insolence that he had my family murdered. I would have preferred myself killed in their stead. But he was a man who reveled in others' suffering.
And you just kept on serving him?
That is correct. I acted as his loyal servant, too afraid to speak up again.
Acted?
Recall what I said when we first met. I was sitting in wait for the perfect opportunity. Now you understand why.
Well, damn.
And if I may come clean about that time, I had every intention of disposing of the revolution's puppet master. Never once did I trust Ginevra. Her foolish motives were plain as day. As the new lord's mother, she planned to control her planted usurper from the shadows, acting as the effective governor of the land. Having no family left to myself, this city and its people are like my children. So I refused to stand by and allow her to turn them into tools to satisfy her own avarice. The land would hardly survive a tyrant sweeping in to replace a tyrant. But she was removed from the board by the former lord before she had a chance to see her aspirations to fruition. Knowing she was no longer a danger, I decided I would wait and see how the successor fared before taking any further action. To determine if you were sufficient to serve as lord of this land.
I guess I passed. Huh.
Are you not upset, my lord?
Nothing to be upset about. Never hid the fact that you acted in your own interests. If a piece had no value to you, you discarded it. I always knew there's more than what you were telling me. I'll just say, I'm relieved to still be standing here.
Oh, if only you knew how close you were to falling on the other side of that line.
Am I really that on edge? After all the work I put into this?
While you do have a rare aptitude and strength of spirit, you are still much too easily swayed by your emotions. Ergo, I shall continue to instruct you until you are able to fully satisfy my expectations. 'Tis rather curious. So oft do we speak, so grateful for time together. I have come to think of you as my second son.
Don't get all mushy on me, old man. We're not friends, we're not family. I'm a pawn on your board, you're a pawn on mine. Strictly business.
Oh, my apologies. I never said a word.
Right. Never happened. Moving right along. Just keep doing what you do best.
At your service, my lord.
Out of curiosity, do you have any free hands around capable of riding a horse?
For what purpose?
There's someone I want found.
Whoever it may be you wish to find, my lord, I am obliged to remind you that...
You don't even have to finish that. I know. I was supposed to leave the past in the past.
Let us see. And your men have their hands rather full at the moment. That we can perhaps arrange for one of them to be reassigned.
Are you sure?
Is a small request, and not once in your entire tenure have you requested to use your men for personal matters. I believe we can spare a hand or two on such a rare occasion.
Much appreciated.
Shall I arrange for them to set off immediately?
Please. I'm looking for a girl. If she's alive, she look around 13 or 14. She has unusual markings on her face.
Markings akin to burn scars?
Barnier once imprisoned her in this manner. He used her as a prop for his banquets, cutting her up from head to toe. My guess is that the patches on her face are a result of Barnier's abuse.
Indeed. I know the girl. I presume she had not survived the slave revolt. I take it you care quite deeply about this girl, my lord. Then allow me to offer my sincerest apologies in his stead.
No need to apologize. Will you help me find her, Odilon?
I will oversee the search operation personally to the best of my ability, my lord. I pray the girl is still alive.
As do I. Unlikely as may be. I'm just chasing after a sliver of a dream that shattered long ago. That said, you do find her alive. Bring her here without telling her it's at the Lord's order. She likely assumes the old Barnier is after her if you say anything. She happens to have found a new home where she's happy. Just leave her be.
Understood.
Time drifted slowly onward. As I anticipated, there was no news regarding her whereabouts, but new shops and stalls continue opening in the city, with them coming a steady flow of travelers and passing merchants. As traffic through the city increased, so too did the number of people seeking an audience with me. It was getting busier by the day. My plans to attract merchants and artisans from the capital had worked, and every one of them seemed to have a bigger, more ambitious proposition than the last. My days became a cycle of meetings, reviewing propositions, balancing the budget, and deciding whether to proceed or postpone. Amidst all the tumult, my thoughts drifted even further from the poor, where still my people. And that's the last of the day's meetings. There's no end in sight to this.
That is a good thing, my lord. It means you have succeeded in drawing traffic to the city.
I guess, but still. Need to go back and review all those proposals, so... Avalon.
Lord Barnier! A moment!
I don't have a moment to spare.
A townsperson requests an audience with the Lord.
You have been instructed to deny entry to commerce.
I tried, but he refuses to leave the gate.
Hold on. What's this man's name?
Sir, he calls himself Gratien.
Oh shit, is it really him? Let me in, by all means.
My lord, you mustn't give anyone special treatment.
Gratien's not just anyone. We've been to hell and back together. He wouldn't be here if it wasn't important. You should hear what he has to say.
No, my lord, you cannot. Your past is...
He's a good friend. I'm not setting him away. That's not even on the table.
Friend or not, you mustn't give him an audience. You are the lord now, and he a mere peasant. You cannot be certain he will hold himself with decorum.
I don't appreciate what you're implying about my friend, old man. He's no goddamn brute.
I imply nothing, my lord.
Keep your counsel to topics you actually know something about. I'm not going to stand by and listen to anyone insult my friends. Not even you.
My lord, must I remind you yet again to keep your temper in check.
That's enough out of you. I'm done. Not another word on this subject.
My lord.
Hey, guard, open the gate.
Yes, sir.
Sup, Jacopo? It's been ages.
Feels like forever. How have you been doing?
Never been better. How about you, kid? Show proper respect to your lord, peasant. You are to refer to him as Lord Barnier, not any false names he may have responded to while in hiding. Seriously? You ain't gonna let him kick back even for a buddy?
Enough, Odilon. You can't call me by my old name.
But, my lord...
I said I heard enough from you.
Well, look at you. Taking charge and barking orders all important like... You're like a whole new man, my lord.
Please, you can use my name.
I'm dead serious though. Hard to believe it ain't even been 2 years. You seriously look like a whole new man.
You think so? I don't feel like I changed all that much myself.
I don't know, you just... Yeah. What's the word? Emanates lordliness now. Guess it don't take long in the noble's den to turn into one of them. No matter how far down the chain you come from. And look at this room. Look at all these fancy fucking furnishings. None of this old Barnier stuff, is it?
Nope. With all the meetings I've been having, I need to make sure I had a room that was nice and presentable.
Well, that's one way to put it.
Hey, don't think I'm just throwing around money for the fun of it. If I want any pull in a negotiation, I need to look like I have.
No need to explain yourself, kid. I totally get it. It ain't easy dealing with a bunch of rich folks with sticks up their asses.
I appreciate it. Anyway, what brings you here today?
Whoa, bud. Do I need the reason to visit a friend? Can't a guy just want to hang out and catch up? Come on.
I never said that. I'm just extremely busy at the moment. Not much time to spare for anyone.
Come on. Don't be such a tight ass. That's exactly why I'm here. To make sure you don't got that stick up yours so deep it punctures your brain. You gotta let loose sometimes.
I suppose. Thank you for your concern.
So let's get sloshed. Just like the old days. I even brought the booze.
I wish I could, but I don't have the time.
You'll drink with merchants and rich snobs, but not me. That stings, kid. Right to the gut.
I see you're as pushy as ever. Alright, fine. One drink. In the back room.
That's what I'm talking about. My lord.
Be fine, Odilon. We go back years. There's nothing wrong with a couple of friends sharing drinks after hours.
If you insist, my lord, but the peasant must leave his blade behind. I will not, under any circumstances, allow you to be alone with an armed slum dweller. Yeesh. Everyone here needs to loosen up, huh? You seriously think I'm gonna pull a sword on an old pal? Humor me. Whatever fine you win, old timer. Happy now? Yes.
Sorry about that, Gratien. Odilon's always on edge. It's nothing personal.
Nah, it's cool. Can't say I blame him. Now let's go get thrashed. Got a little something from that pub we used to haunt. Bet you usually drink way better shit than this now that you're the frickin' lord. Well, it'll be like the old times, you know.
This reminds me of the time we had a drinking contest.
Wanna go another round?
I'll have to refrain. Odilon would murder me if I did that.
Sounds like the geezer's got you by the balls, huh? No fun allowed up here in the laird's house.
It can be rather suffocating, yeah.
Well, you can at least let loose today. To old times, kid.
To old times. Now this is the sight I never dreamed of. Two of us here in the Lord's Manor, drinking together. We're both slaves when we met, for God's sake. Gratien. Still with me, bud?
Yeah, I think I had a disconnection here. Hang on. Ah, no fucking joke. You'll never know what life will bring you. Been almost 5 years since then. You aren't even 20 yet.
I expect we've both grown up quite a bit since those days. Or are you still running around like a wild boar even now?
Hard to say. I don't think I'm as bad as I used to be. But to get into shit kinda comes with the territory, you know. And the slums are still the same as ever.
I see. So how's everyone doing down there?
Well, scraping by, as usual.
The rest of the gang? And Maria?
The guys are still lazing around at the pub all day. Maria's rebuilt the brothel and she's getting by as best she can. Obviously not in the same place, and it's smaller than the old one. As for a chick, she's doing alright for herself.
Glad to hear it.
So, tell me, kid. You and her totally had a thing, eh?
Where on earth did that come from? Please already told you, no, it didn't.
Just seems like she's about 10 times more worried about you than anyone else. There must have been something. Don't make sense otherwise. Maybe she just had a thing for you, and you never saw it. Poor girl.
There are no romantic feelings on either side. We're friends. Simple as that. Nothing more, nothing less.
Have you seen those honkers?
What does that have to do with anything?
It just don't make sense to me. How can a guy only be friends with a chick?
Just means we value certain things in life differently.
You know, you like to do that sometimes. Get all weirdly noble like that. Hey, I didn't mean that as a joke.
Has nothing to do with being normal. Maria's special. We know each other most of our lives. We survive hell together.
Oh yeah? You mentioned that before, didn't you? That you two have known each other longer than anyone else. What was it like back then for the two of you?
Before I met her, Maria was raised in an orphanage. She said she ran off because she and the director didn't get along.
Can't say I'm surprised. How about you?
I hardly remember anything from before I came to the city. Just bits and pieces of what my mother told me. Being guarded by a bunch of men, being kidnapped by bandits.
You mean that noblewoman? Real shame you had to lose her so soon after reuniting, huh?
Indeed it is.
Don't you think it's about time you cut the shit?
Excuse me?
You're not a Barnier. You didn't inherit the throne. You're just a damned fraud. Ain't that right, Jacopo?
Were you talking?
Finally starting to kick in, looks like. God, you got any idea how hard it was not to throttle you through that entire conversation?
What? Almost out of nowhere, my heart rate skyrocketed. My legs started trembling so violently I had to lean against the wall to support myself. The whole world started swirling. I could just barely make out my old friend glaring at me through the fog.
You like that? Feels like your heart's about to burst, don't it? Don't you worry, kid. You won't be feeling nothing soon.
You poisoned the drinks? Why would you?
Why? You seriously need me to spell it out for you? Ha! You've been stuffing your head with fucking rainbows up here. You wanna know what they call you down in the slums? Jacopo, the betrayer.
I did not betray.
You take one goddamn look at the city and tell me that again. While you're up here, treating anyone with a cart and some trinkets to sell like fucking royalty, the slums is still the same rat's nest you left it. No, what even worse now, with your new marketplace, anyone can turn a little bit of money into a big pile of gold. But if you got nothing to begin with, you're just dead in the streets. All you're doing is making the rich even richer.
No, I'm trying. I wanted to explain how I had everything planned out, how I first needed to improve the economy as a whole before I could turn my attention to the less well-off, that nothing changed was proof I was protecting them, that the slums had been in danger of being eradicated entirely, and I stopped it. But I could see in his eyes that nothing I said would convince him. As far as he was concerned, I was pure evil.
You're not the man you used to be.
Gratien, why? I thought you believe in me.
You're damn right I did. And then you went and fed us a bunch of lies. You called yourself the rightful heir. You called yourself a Barnier. But I did my digging. You don't got a lick of royal blood in you. All you ever wanted was to line your pockets, you selfish bastard.
No,
You never had any intention of helping us.
Please, hear me out, Gratien.
We were all just pawns to you. The whole damn revolution was part of your game.
I'm begging you.
How's it feel? Knowing your throne sits on the backs of all of those people you betrayed.
Please.
You don't have any right to call yourself the goddamn Lord.
Gratien!
Hell, you barely have any right to call yourself a fucking man. You're just a rat in fancy clothes. It should have been me. I would have made an infinitely better laird than you ever were. If only I had had that ring, then it could have been me.
So that's what this is all about. In a flash, everything I once felt for this man, all the friendship, the camaraderie, the sympathy, went cold. As much as he tried to dress up this whole farce, that was where this heart truly was. He was just sour about not being the one who got to be Lord. He believed himself superior. He got himself caught on this stupid fit of jealousy. And now he's trying to kill me over it? That's seriously all this is? Are you listening to what you're saying?
What was that?
You're the one who's not the man you used to be. You're the one who's been a self-centered bastard.
Talk all you want, dead man.
The Gratien I knew would never resort to using poison. You would have drawn a sword the second you passed through those gates, faced me like a man. But look at you. Even Barnier had more of a spine than you.
You dare compare me to that sack of shit. Alright, fine. I'll play it your way.
He had a knife hitting on him? Instantly later, Gratien was brandishing a short blade. I snuck it under his clothes, I presumed. I was always amazed at how thoroughly prepared he was. He never had any intention of this going any other way. He hadn't come to talk. He was never going to hear me out. He was here to do one thing and one thing only. I doubt he had any plans for what would come next. Raw hatred was all that fueled him. Who wouldn't take my place after killing me? Who wouldn't work himself to the bone to ensure the city kept running? He didn't give a single damn about any of that. You're scum! I won't be taken down by some worthless, self-absorbed rat! Nothing I had even tried had been enough to best Gratien in combat. That was when I was at my peak. Though the myriad needles of this poison, prickling my every pore, barely able to stand under my own weight. Still, I had no intention of surrendering my life to this cur. Took in a deep breath, clenched my fists, shouted at my shaking limbs. Move! 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 Move, damn you! My fingers, I could feel them again. Before the thought finished passing through my mind, my hand reached for a blade. Grasping the rapier hanging from the wall, I swiftly drew it from its scabbard. It was a decorative blade not meant for combat. It would probably bounce right off Gratien's muscular chest. But there was one place I could target.
Rotten hell, you son of a bitch.
Knife in hand, he lunged at me. Just moments before death befell me, my vision, blurred by the poison, grew unbelievably clear. Gratien almost appeared to be moving in slow motion. I wasn't sure my mind had ever been so clear, so sharp in battle before. The dying embers of my fading life burned anew into a blazing inferno. Like my favorite Barnier, this war was over in an instant. Before I had time to breathe or even blink, it was settled. And in that same instant, everything I built up with this man turned to dust. I never once defeated him. For as long as I'd known him, I was always number 2. And now, for the very first time, I won.
Why did it have to be you there? And not me.
The blade of rapier in my hand skewed Gratien's throat. His mouth flapped open and shut like a fish. He glared at me, face twisted in a mixture of hatred and agony. Sputtering fragments of contempt until the life drained from his eyes. That first victory against my old friend also took his life. How it all happened in a blink of an eye, hardly enough time to even register in my mind.
My lord, what it was all the commotion? What happened? My lord, please, stay with me. Were you poisoned? Someone. Is anyone there?
Avalon.
Yes, sir!
A doctor, as quickly as you can.
Aye!
My lord, please. My lord, a doctor will be here shortly. Please stay with me just a little longer. My lord.
Odilon. You were right. I was stupid. I should have listened. I thought he was my friend, but he wasn't. Not anymore. Because we've once been friends. That made him my greatest threat. Can't breathe. My blood feels like it made of magma. My throat hurts. My skin is like it's being eaten away. Avalon. Who's there? Who's there? Why are you laughing? Answer me.
How does it feel, boy? To know it all went exactly as I said it would.
What? How? But you're...
That you wouldn't be able to trust anyone.
You're dead.
The worst is yet to come, boy.
Silence!
You could work yourself to the marrow of your bones, and still the people will never look beyond the surface.
I said enough.
Listen, you can hear the scorn in their voices. They're calling you a tyrant, a soulless monster. I know you can hear them.
They are not.
They say you're no better than me. That you're a foolish ruler who cares not for his people. They shout an endless cacophony of discontent.
Shut up. Just shut up. I am nothing like you.
Can you, then, remain a virtuous leader, no matter how bitterly your people despise you? Is your love for them truly so resolute? No. A virtue you brandish was never so selfless. Tell me I'm wrong, Slumbrat. It is not benevolence that drove you to take the throne, but a thirst for power, for prestige.
Not a word, not a word.
Do you know what truly brought you here? You were tired of people looking down on you. You thought you would be treated with respect if you had a real power. You wanted it more than anything in the world.
Enough already.
You dedicating your life in the service of others. It was never going to last. Allow me to make a prediction. Soon, very soon, you'll find yourself drifting over to my side. You'll stop caring about the people's lives, and for that, they'll despise you. You lose any last bit of sense left in you. Push everyone away until you're all alone. And then you succumb completely to madness' grip.
Stop talking.
You don't have what it takes to be the lord of the land.
I said, stop talking!
The people aren't the only ones who aren't on your side. You have enemies everywhere you look. The nobles don't accept you as one of them. They'll try to drag you off of your throne by any means. Your aides and servants will turn on you. And this won't be the last time you will writhe in the claws of poison. Again and again and again and again. Never will you stop being the target of others' loathing. Or will you continue to act like some kind of paragon or virtue, never wavering in your faith in others? How long will your benevolence last? In the face of dozens of attempts on your life.
Shut your goddamn mouth!
It won't be easy, boy. Because you came from the slums, you face even more, even greater threats than I.
Silence!
I bet that just terrifies you. Drains all the hope from your heart. Well, that is an easy solution. Follow in my footsteps and reign with terror.
Stop talking. I heard enough of your goddamn noise.
You're actually afflicted with a great curse, boy. A curse known as a Lord of the Land. It's a curse from which you'll never be free. And hence, you will never be free from me. However much you may come to regret taking that throne, you can't give it back now. It's not something you can simply hand off to someone else. Nor a duty from which you can simply relieve yourself. That anguish and agony and misery it brings you every day will follow you all the way to your grave.
Just stop. Damn it. Keep your babbling to yourself, you damned ghost.
Go on, try and make me. Cover my mouth, why don't you? You can't do it, can you? You're too weak to defeat even a mere spirit.
Shut the hell up!
I know precisely what your future holds, boy. You'll sit upon the throne alone. Not a single person at your side. And not even death shall free you from your internal solitude. For it is naught but an empty shell with which you decorate the throne.
Stop talking!
Do you hear that, slum rat? Someone's come for you. The question is, do they act out of genuine concern? Can you be sure the water they give you is safe to drink? Perhaps they mean to finish you off. If a simple grunt like him could get his hands on poison, how easy do you think it would be for the Lord's Council to procure a substance hundreds of times more potent? Hell, he wouldn't even have to go through the trouble. You're no more a threat than an insect with the rings torn off. A feeble woman or a crippled slave could plunge a knife into your trembling spine with little effort. Behold, the former mastermind of the revolution. All this suffering, you brought it on yourself by trying to defy your fate.
The nightmares continued. Again and again and again they haunted me. Every time I drifted off to sleep, there floated Barnier's severed head, cursing me, mocking me, laughing at me from every direction. As he said it would, I soon began to hear the people as well, endlessly condemning me, deriding me, berating me. I tried to convince myself it was all in my head, but Gratien words told me otherwise. How my old companions called me Jacobo the Betrayer, he has said. I wasn't sure how much time had passed. Was it day? Was it night? Was I sane enough to tell the difference? Was I even still alive? I had no idea. It was always the same refrain every time he appeared. You can't trust anyone. Your friends will all eventually betray you, try to drag you off your throne. Your people have no faith in you. Everyone despises you. I couldn't even tell anymore. Were those Barnier words? Or were they coming from the depths of my own mind? All I knew for certain was that there was no escaping them, and that they were slowly eating away my spirit. My breathing was labored, my entire body felt like it was on a spit, being roasted in eternal flames of hell. And at other times I couldn't stop shivering. I felt like I had been tossed in a frozen river. Doctors, guards, Odilon, couldn't tell who was who, but there would always seem to be someone standing by my side. The faceless shadows were anything but comforting, though, for Barnier's ghost constantly reminded me of the threat they posed. I quite certainly wailed like a terrified child. Everyone seemed like a danger. If even Gratien couldn't be trusted. Who was to say the doctors weren't sneaking poison into my medicine? Who was to say Odilon didn't plan to silently remove me? I didn't know who I could trust. Or maybe Barnier was right. I couldn't trust anyone. Still he cackled. Still he cursed, right by my ear. There isn't a soul left in this world who won't betray you, he whispered, laughing away. My fever seems to be receding. I can finally move again. Looks like I survived. Hey! Hey! Is anyone there? Where are you, Odilon? Anyone? Avalon.
Lord Barnier! I'm so glad to see you're feeling well again.
Thanks.
We've all been worried sick. Lord Barnier?
What?
Pardon. You just seem, not quite yourself. But after all that's happened, I suppose that shouldn't be a surprise.
How long was I out?
3 days, sir. And the poison kept you bedridden for 3 days for 3 full days and nights.
That long, huh? I got a lot of work to catch up on.
Yes, sir. But I implore you to take things easy for the next few days.
When do I ever have time for that? And where's Odilon? I haven't seen him. Go fetch him for me.
He is presently...
Don't tell me he's not around. Where the hell did that old man get off to?
No, he's here. Please, Lord Barnier, try to remain calm. Odilon was...
Odilon!
Lord, is that you? Thank heavens! You are well.
Forget everything about me. What happened?
My deepest apologies.
I don't want an apology. I want you to tell me why this happened.
Please, my lord, distress not over this simple old man.
Why? Odilon. The Odilon I know would never deign to put himself out in front of a gang of slum dwellers.
Please, Lord Barnier, try to remain calm. Odilon was struck in the head with a stone and is in critical condition.
The following day, that is, the day after Gratien poisoned me, a dozen people from the slums showed up at the manor's gates. They cried in angry protest against the Lord, demanding change. Evidently, Gratien hadn't kept word of my deception to himself, so in addition to their other complaints, they shouted I was a fake, that I wasn't actually nobility. They threatened to reveal my secret if I didn't do something about their living conditions. As the commotion dragged on through the day, people within the manor started getting restless. Eventually, it got to be so intense that Odilon stood near a window, told them they needed to cease immediately, that if they wouldn't, they would be charged with lese majeste, which is when he was hit in the head with a rock and lost consciousness. God, you damn fool!
I am quite pleased to see you have recovered enough to shout with such vigor. Now, I needn't worry.
Wait, slow down. Worry about what?
Regrettably, it would seem, old age has bested me. I think the stone must have gotten my eyes. For I cannot see you there, my lord.
I'm right here. Please, don't give up on me. You're stronger than a stupid rock. Give it a few days, you'll be back to perfect health. And even if your sight doesn't come back, you can still do your job. I can tell you everything I see. Come on, Odilon.
Sincerest apologies.
Please. Would you even go try and talk them down yourself anyways? What did happen to acting only your own benefit? What did you have to gain from not having them executed on the spot? They were rioting in front of the Lord's manor. You had no reason to bother warning them. There's no question they were committing a serious offense. Why did you just do what you always do? And then I would argue with you about it like I always do. What the hell got into you, Odilon?
I suppose I must have softened up somewhat.
Excuse me?
You cared so much about your friends in the slums, my lord, that I took pity on them. Old age seems to weaken more than just the body. How truly inconvenient.
Odilon?
Nevertheless, I am glad this old body held out until today.
What are you...
I would not have been able to pass on peacefully had I not seen you recovered from the poison, my lord.
Stop it. Don't talk like that. I told you, you're stronger than one damn rock. I'm your lord, damn it. My word is the law.
It's with great regret that I must defy my lord's command.
Enough. I mean it. You stop this right now.
My warnings against being swayed by your emotions remains unheeded, I see.
And who the hell's fault do you think that is? Huh?
You are the Lord. The sooner you learn to control that blaze, the smoother your future endeavors will proceed. Do not allow your days to be cut short as well in a moment's weakness. I implore you to always remain strong and ever high of heart, so that none may drag you down. With death upon me, my hands are shaking dreadfully.
I didn't think anything scared you.
It terrifies me to know I will be leaving you alone. Before I was able to teach you everything, I cannot bear knowing that I have forsaken you at the onset of a great and perilous journey. There is so much more I have yet to pass on to you that you will need in order to become a great ruler. So much.
Then don't go. Stay and teach me. You said you wanted to fulfill your duties as a consul. That you didn't want to die until you had accomplished something worthwhile. You can't tell me you're satisfied with this. Odilon? 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 Don't do this. You can't. Say something. Please. Say anything. Tell me it's all a cruel prank. Odilon!
Lord Barnier.
Odilon is dead. Make arrangements for a funeral.
Yeah.
What happened with the riot?
They fled soon after striking Odilon. I would wager they returned to the city.
Thank you.
Would you like something done about them, Lord?
I would. They need to understand that their actions have consequences. They slandered their lord and murdered his consul. We can't just let them walk away from that now, can we?
Then we will have them all arrested and thrown into the dungeon.
I said there'd be consequences. If we just slap them on the wrist, they will come back and do it again. They'll mock me, condescend me, ridicule me, keep making a mess of my home. Tell me, do you feel safe serving a lord whose people neither respect nor fear him? Would you have any admiration for a leader like that? Have them executed. Since Odilon isn't here to advise it, I, Lord Barnier, officially order every spark of opposition to be snuffed out. You find every last one of the rats and will lead them their heads, and then put them on display in the city square. Make sure they know damn well exactly what awaits anyone who opposes Lord Barnier.
Yes, Lord.
Odilon's blood was on my hands. My inexperience, naivety had gotten him killed. He had warned me again and again that my people had no love for me. But I ignored him, foolishly believing in friendship, letting Gratien into my home, and ultimately getting Odilon murdered. My trust didn't belong with Gratien and my old slum companions. It belonged with Odilon. I should have realized so much sooner that he was the one and only person left I could trust. Men with whom I had spent years had likely participated in that riot. Men whose names I knew, whose faces I recognized, with whom I had spoken on countless occasions. But I felt not even a pang of regret in ordering their deaths. I didn't reminisce about the good old days. Those days were gone, irrelevant, meaningless. I felt no sympathy for the people they were leaving behind. Nor did I so much as bat an eye. When I saw their bodies lined up before me, compassion bred weakness, made you vulnerable. I had to exercise every last bit of it. It was the last thing I needed. For I was the Lord Jean-Francois Barnier. Avalon.
Hey! Look at all those heads!
Jordan.
Supposedly they were beheaded for trying to assassinate the Lord.
That seems like a lot of folks for an assassination attempt.
Who can say what happened up yonder?
Nicola.
Have you been down to the square today?
Natalie.
I have. My heavens, I almost passed out at the sight of it.
Why would those stupid thugs try to go after the Lord anyway?
There's been whisperings around town. They say he was actually born in the slums and isn't a noble at all.
Wasn't that just his cover while he was hiding from the phony Barnier?
I certainly hope that's the case. But either way, it's probably best to keep quiet about the topic.
I'll say. I doubt he'll do anything as bad as the phony, but it still brings back bad memories.
And things are getting to be so pleasant, too.
Keep going, Nico.
Oh, thank you. What is this? Some kind of a sick joke? Okay, Gratien's right at the very front! And the other guys used to hang out with at the pub. Did you kill all? Jacobo? You killed all your friends! Why? Jacobo! Never hurt anyone! What happened to you? You went through hell with these guys! How could you just fucking murder them? Ugh! You really changed that much? You have. You have, Jacobo! You have become a completely different man! No. You're long dead. You died in a goddamn revolution. Jacobo, I know, no longer exists. All that's left is Lord Barnier. Everyone, they're all gone. You, Morgana, Sharon, Gratien. Every last one. What the fuck, man?
I appointed a new consul shortly after Odilon's death, but he was an ineffectual, short-sighted oaf. To top it off, he had a tendency to simply non-agree with anyone and everyone rather than express any opinions of his own. If anything, having him around made my job more difficult. It wasn't as though there was anyone else competent enough to take the position, and leaving him so soon would come with his own crop of problems. So I ended up using him to shuffle papers to handle other menial work while I take care of the actual decision-making. The first order of business was to establish clearly defined rules and punishments. Speaking ill of the Lord, spreading false rumors about his lineage, creating art of any form which could be interpreted as defamatory. These were all considered acts of lèse-majesté. In the most severe cases, were potentially punishable by death. I started seeing results almost immediately. The people stopped claiming I was a fake, that I came from the slums. The Barnier's name became a symbol of fear once again. My renovation efforts proceeded as originally planned. The city flourished as a commerce hub, attracting merchants and patrons and visitors from near and far. Some fears had to be removed as well to accommodate the expansion of the marketplace. They were hardly producing anything worthwhile to begin with. If farmers wanted to keep farming, they were free to move elsewhere. I scaled down the size of the slums while scaling up security. Lacking leadership, the little remained of the peacekeeper group had turned into a gang of unruly thugs. So rather than keeping the peace, they largely made things worse. In response, I forbade the formation of unauthorized organizations within the slums. Without that in place, the city was much safer, more orderly. An economy significantly stronger than it had been under my predecessor's rule. However, those unfortunate enough to miss riding the wave of economic growth found themselves falling even further behind their neighbors. The ravine between the poor and the wealthy had become nigh uncrossable. My old manor was hardly a bastion of safety either. Not only was I rapidly enacting new policy, laws were stricter and punishments harsher than before, so many were, to put it lightly, more than a little displeased with me. I'd gone through several food tasters, just as many direct assassination attempts. It wasn't particularly difficult to avoid major incidents by simply suspecting everyone, but I could seldom relax as a result. In the time I come to prefer solitude. Well, not so much prefer, as required it for my own safety. Odilon's death left me with more than just solitude, though. The phantom slipped free from my dreams, appearing from my shadow whenever I was alone, laughing endlessly.
What did I tell you, boy? You're controlling them with fear, just as I did. It's a wonderful feeling, is it not? A look of terror on a man's face is the most exquisite thing in all the world.
Silence, you.
Stand by the window and listen. You can hear them all the way from the bottom of the hill, bemoaning the great and terrible Lord Barnier.
Be quiet.
And you know who their cries are about. It's not me any longer. It's you. Oh. It's you, boy.
Shut up, god damn it.
Don't fool yourself. You're no better than me.
Enough! I said silence, spirit! I'm nothing like you.
Is that so? Then tell me, boy, how do we differ?
I don't hold those disgusting banquets for one. Nor do I torture slaves with my own sick pleasure.
By your command, hundreds of slaves are being worked so hard it will surely spell their deaths. How is that any different than murder or torture?
The deaths are meaningless. They're giving their lives for the good of the city.
In your eyes, perhaps. But how many would take your side?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
If the people were truly satisfied with your rule, you wouldn't be holed up in this room all the time. You have no one you can open up to, no one to offer you companionship. What better proof of your tyrannical ways than your own isolation?
Shut your damn mouth!
You wretched men. How many times have you been betrayed? Have you found anyone you can trust after all your old friends proved you couldn't even count on them?
Oh, for God's sake, quit babbling already!
Solitude will be your constant companion for the rest of your days. And should you let your guard down even for a moment, know that 100 men lie in wait, ready to plunge their blades into your back. Your attendants dream of the day they can sneak poison past your taster.
Shut up!
Ah, you poor, pathetic child. How much misery and stress have you brought upon yourself because you let your dreams run amok? Clawing your way up into a world much, much too big for you.
Be gone, damn you! Jordan.
My lord, I heard a huge crash. Lord?
How many times do I have to tell you to stay out of my chambers?
Forgive me. But I was afraid you might be in...
I can take care of myself, damn it! Don't make me say it again.
Yes, sir.
To hell with you. We're nothing alike. I'm making their lives better, not worse. I am not a tyrant. I started relying on alcohol to rid myself of the phantom. When I was drunk enough, I didn't have to see anything. I didn't dream, I didn't have nightmares. Most importantly, I didn't have time to think. There were times I couldn't be sure whether I was in my right mind. There were times I was so panicked I wanted to scream in my throat raw. There was never a time I was safe showing that weakness. Need for experience would only put me at risk. I couldn't complain to anyone. I couldn't ask anyone for help. I couldn't believe in anyone. Odilon's dying words came back to me again and again. Stay strong and ever high of heart. What do you mean to be high of heart, though? Certainly had nothing to be proud of. Not having spent my early years a filthy, impoverished slum rat. Not having spearheaded a violent revolution and stolen the throne. Not this farce of a tale about me secretly being a noble. I'd been raised to be a lord. I'd been taught to have a proud, noble spirit. That was likely what Odilon had wanted to impart on me. The nature of a ruler. People automatically respect a man who is truly dignified and noble. They instinctively admire him, kneeling out of wholehearted honor. And that's what makes a true king. Not knowing the first thing about how to be that kind of man, I fell back on the only alternative that came to mind, forcing them to kneel beneath my iron fist. 2 years on the Odilon's tutelage was nowhere near long enough to instill in me the natural nobility I needed. Thus was I allowed to be tormented by the accursed phantom whenever alone and play the ruthless ruler elsewise. In my attempts to master fear lurking within, it grew louder and more ostentatiously contemptuous. Practically every word out of my mouth was an insult. The old Jdbutler was long gone, and Lord Barnier had crept in to take his place. It was gradual enough that I hardly realized what was happening, but now, all I saw in the mirror was the face of a cruel, wretched man. I even came to hate my old self, think him foolish. What kind of a vapid, nebulous dream was I wanted to go off out into the world? What basis did I have for thinking myself any more significant than any other kid on the streets? And where the hell did I get the idea that having influence meant having freedom? I could barely even take care of myself. Where did I get off on thinking a little power would let me protect the people I cared about? What about now? What fundamentally did I even want now? What did I have to protect? Nothing. I was too far gone. There was no light to be found no matter how far I marched this path. And only a bottomless abyss waited at my back. I left myself with nowhere to return to. Before I knew it, nearly 4 years had passed since the revolution. By then, not a soul dared defy my will. I was surrounded by people who supported my every decision. Few of them generally agreed with me on everything, obviously. But no one could deny how much growth I had brought about, and so long as they continued to produce results, I would continue to have their outward support. As a trading hub, the city flourished, but the citizens were less than thrilled by the work I was doing. The poorest, especially, seemed to hold a great deal of enmity for me. But I was reaching a point where I couldn't manage under the support of the upper crust alone. Simply dumping sacks of coins into the streets would end poverty, though. Increasing taxes on imported goods would undermine everything I built up. Like an actual solution, all I could do was work to make them feel like they were better off than they actually were. Fortunately, it was much easier to pull the wool over the middle, the lower class eyes, than it was the better educated upper class. I started by building public recreational facilities, which citizens had priority access to. And then I turned my eyes towards religion. About a year earlier, as part of the city's expansion, a bridge was built across the river that served as the city's affected border. A church has still not been established in that new district, so I wanted to build one and gather a following. Conveniently enough, my predecessor had been in the process of building a second manor on the other side of the river. With a little bit of work, it could easily be repurposed into a church. Once people started making use of the church, it would be simple to win their favor by making myself known as a generous patron. Faith was the ultimate blinder for the uneducated, and history showed time and again that religion could be a powerful tool in the right hands. But the high foreigner and merchant population in the city meant that no one particular religion had managed to take hold. The merchants especially tended to develop their own individual philosophies over the years, with few cared much for higher powers. That's a possible explanation for why the church had never had much sway in this region. There was therefore a chance the whole thing would just be a colossal waste of money. However, I recently caught wind of a curious rumor. There was a nun serving at a small church at the far edge of town who people had come to refer to as the Saintess. One moment. I see that one of the children's named Natalie.
What? Oh.
Harry, come here, is this me?
Continue on, Natalie.
Oh? What is it?
We picked some flowers for you. Take a look, they're so pretty.
Oh, why, thank you. They're beautiful. Get it away from me!
She actually fell for it.
Hey now, how many times do I have to tell you it's not nice to trick people?
You're too much fun to tease, Sister Mary.
That's hardly an excuse. It's still wrong. I'm your big sister here, so you need to treat me like...
There's a bug on your dress.
What? No way. Where is it? Get it! Someone get it off me!
Just kidding. There's nothing there.
Get back here, you little rascals!
So her name's Marie. Not quite what I envisioned of the so-called saintess. Jordan, go ahead. You're the attendant.
She seeks out orphans to take into her care, and offers food for the hungry, shelter for the homeless, and rest for the weary.
And where exactly do the funds for that come from?
She covers it all herself, supposedly.
I highly doubt she has that kind of money just sitting around. Look at the building. It's practically falling apart. Wait a second. I get it. She makes use of all the church's resources to fund her charity.
That is correct, my lord.
Is she really so foolish as to not realize that's unsustainable?
The locals are quite fond of her, but the same cannot be said about the priests and the other nuns. Her work is causing them great financial distress.
I'm not surprised.
Shall I summon her?
No, don't bother. I've seen more than enough.
Yes, my lord.
What? You have something to say?
No, my lord. I simply find it curious you would take the time to come all the way out here when you have far more important things to attend to. Not that I would ever imply your judgment is anything other than impeccable, my lord.
I just thought this saintess might be someone I knew.
Pardon?
But I was mistaken. They don't call her the saintess because she does God's work. They just call her that because she's a damn goody two-shoes. So much for words having actual meaning. Christ.
I see. Lord Barnier.
It's nothing. We're heading back now.
Yes, sir.
Mary, the giant man's here.
Come on now, be polite.
Avalon.
Good day, Marie. The kids seem to be doing quite well.
Oh, you have no idea. So well, in fact, that this little hooligan found himself a whole handful of bugs. My goodness, he about scared me out of my skin.
A little mischief is a good thing. Their smiles wouldn't be half as bright at any other orphanage.
I'm not so sure about that.
In any case, here's what I earned this week.
No. I keep telling you that's not necessary.
But you do accept tithes, no?
Yes, but Bill...
I know it's hardly enough to cover what you need, but please.
No, that's not what I mean.
Avalon, out of curiosity, try a bit of a Japanese accent.
I am trying.
Oh, okay.
It's your money. You should use it for yourself.
Okay, let's see if this works. I have nothing to use it on now.
Oh.
Interesting.
You put it up to much better use than I ever could.
Just slight. You don't have to go too far.
All right. Thank you. But try not to work yourself too hard, okay?
I promise.
Goodness, you really do make a lot in a week. I didn't realize carpentry paid so well.
Indeed. I'm fortunate enough to have found good work.
Maybe I'll leave the church and take up carpentry myself. Just kidding.
You kid, but would you do quite well for yourself? You're strong enough to carry me at least.
That took every last bit of strength I had.
Who's that man? Even all the foreigners who get here, I've never seen anyone who looks like that.
He is a frequent visitor to this church. Now, he does not appear to come for the charity.
An Oriental, perhaps?
Oriental?
My former consul told me of them once. Vagrants from the Far East who supposedly look much like that man.
How curious.
He may be fooled a nun, but I know damn well no carpenter in the world makes out much in a week. There's something fishy about him. Look into that man. Tell me everything you find out about him.
Yes, Lord Barnier.
Now I'm heading back. In addition to the renovations for the church and gathering intel on the Far Eastern man, make sure to keep an eye out for any unusual rumors or happenings outside the city's borders. Of all the reports I received, the one that caught my attention was word of a witch who lived by a lake. This lakeside witch supposedly had miraculous powers, allowing her to cure any ailment. The effect was transmitted through her blood. This wasn't the first time I heard of the witch, an elderly woman who prepared and sold medicinal herbs. But I hadn't realized she also traded in miracles. It sounded like a bunch of snake oil to me, but she had allegedly cured a deathly ill young girl and started to make quite a name for herself. On top of that, they also said the sound of the witch's first cry had ended a years-long drought in the village where she was born. This doesn't bode well.
Why not, my lord?
Try using your damn head once in a while, would you? Two competing denominations forming so close together. You don't see how that could lead to all sorts of headaches? The objective is to unify people under a single banner, to which I then pledge my support and earn their favor. But all becomes mute if their fate turns towards this witch. The people do love their heroes and miracles, after all.
It is quite an attractive proposition, I must say.
I'm mocking them, you buffoon.
I beg your pardon?
The chances of it growing to something actually worth worrying about are slim. I bet it's enough to flame up for its breast and sit back and hope it burns itself out.
Shall I deliver an order for her to cease operation, then?
That would be best. Actually, no. I'll do this personally. You just keep your mouth shut and do exactly as you ordered. Nothing more, nothing less. Understood?
Yes, Lord.
To start, summon the man from the church. A few days later, I was standing face to face with the man in my audience room. He seemed much less personable in person than when I'd seen him with the nun. Stone-faced, cold, and faintly smelled of blood. Not that I could actually smell blood, but there was an animalistic air emanating from him. That much I expected, though. I knew before summoning him that he was anything but a respectable man. I take it you're an Oriental man who's been buzzing around at a local church of late?
That would be me. What of it?
Who you think you're talking to, you impudent rat? Show some damn respect.
Apologies. I'm not very familiar with the local customs or language.
Very well then. You're fortunate I'm such an understanding man. Now, for the reason I called you here. You're the one who killed that cart full of slaves 4 years ago, aren't you?
So you know about that?
I wasn't actually sure it was you, but now I have confirmation. Since then, one slave of Far Eastern origin has remained unaccounted for. I take it that would be you.
That's right.
You made one hell of a mess out there.
Am I here to be punished?
That depends on how a talk goes.
If you think I'm going back to being a slave, you're fooling yourself.
I don't need no more damn slaves. And I certainly don't want you as one. You're obviously not finding any respectable work, being an ex-slave, so take it you're still in the business of getting your hands dirty. Are you not? I assume you're playing cat burglar or something, living off of whatever you can swipe from the nearest unlucky bastard.
Correct.
Isn't it comical, then, that you would choose God's sacred house to stretch your legs in, you filthy dog?
I absolutely agree.
I thought that would get a reaction out of you, but it seems you got no bite in you today. Never mind. Let's get into business. You're gonna help me out with a little something I'm working on.
Help you with what, exactly?
Something that's going to make me a lot of money. If you lend a hand, I'll make sure you're well taken care of, along with the church you're so fond of, and the nun you're taking a liking to. That nun of yours has quite the name for herself. Out in the city proper, people have started calling her the Saintess.
Right about that. She is.
Huh. Commoners love the heroes and saints. They eat that rubbish right off. But say or not, you can't simply create food for nothing. Her work is causing financial troubles for the church, is it not?
It is, yes.
You help me with this? I'll offer you an entirely new church, one where she has complete control to do as she wishes. She'll make it into the biggest church in the city. She'll be able to help even more people, which should surely please her.
What would you have me do?
Jumping at the first whiff of scrapes. You really are a dog, aren't you?
I don't like conversations that overstay their welcome.
Fair enough. Then let's get down to business. Not far from here lives a witch whose blood has the power to cause miracles.
Miracle blood? Sounds like a sham to me.
You never know. They say the sound of her first cry brought rain to the land where she was born, saving the whole village from drought. They say her blood has the power to cure any disease. I'll worry about the veracity of the rumors later. Right now, I want for you to capture her and bring her to me.
Explain something to me, Lord. You said that if I helped you, the nun would be able to save more people than she does now. So how does capturing this witch accomplish that?
I'm glad you know how to listen, dog. We'll be turning the blood into a miracle elixir, which she would then distribute to patrons of the church. In exchange for tithes, of course.
Selling it then.
Selling isn't quite the right word, but that's how you want to think of it, by all means. The commonest beloved Saintess, handing out an all-powerful miracle medicine. They'll lap it up.
And in turn, you make a fortune.
Exactly. Money can use to support her church. and be a boon to the city's economy as well. And a single rich freedom is all it costs for everyone here to come out happy. So what'll it be? Will you help me? Or will I have to...
I'll help. I have no reason not to.
Decisive and a good listener. Excellent.
Once I've captured the witch, where do I take her?
I have a mansion set aside where your nun can run her church. There's an observation tower on the grounds. The witch will be kept locked up there to ensure we have a constant supply of blood.
Okay. When do you want me to get her?
You're just chomping at the bit now, aren't you? I thought you had to stay at least a little, but I guess it was foolish of me to presume yet to understand how a killer's mind works. All the resources are put into investigating you, and everyone close to you are wasted, it would seem. Do you even have a conscience?
Don't act like you're any different.
I assure you, I have a conscience. I wouldn't be doing this if it weren't necessary for the growth of the city.
No, I mean you're as much as a murderer than me. You would never come up with such a scheme like this if your hands were clean. A man's right. You're nothing but a murderer. How deep has the blood seeped into your hands? How many have you killed claiming their lives necessary sacrifices? And how many more will die for your ambition?
Silent spirit.
Poor witch. Blessed with the power to perform miracles, only to win her the attention of the villainous lord.
It must be done. How do I explain myself to you? It's not like the old hag has long to live anyway. What the hell is villainish about having her spend her final days for the greater good of the city? So many lives would be improved at the cost of only one.
You keep telling yourself that, boy. But what you're doing is no different than my banquets. You're cut from the same cloth as the men standing before you. And the same cloth as me.
Be gone, Phantom. Watch your mouth, dog. Don't you dare insinuate I wouldn't ever condescend to your level. Damn it. That's the first time you've shown off with someone else around. At least you behaved yourself today. I'm pretty sure you're smarter than most people I deal with. You won't betray me either. Who knows how much longer he'll live, though. Stay. Don't touch until I say so. Oh, quit pounding at me like that. You're the Lord's dog. Stand tall and proud. Alright, here you are. Drink up. Looks like it's safe. I swear, so much work just to get myself a damn drink of water. When I heard about the Saintess, I thought it might be you, but it was someone else. I never did get around to resuming the search after Odilon passed. Just no one around I can trust with such a sensitive task. It's probably for the best if I never do find you. We can't go back to the way we were before. Not there's much chance you're even still alive. If, by some strange chance, you are still alive, what would you think of the man I've become? Several days later than originally planned, the Far Eastern men finally arrived at the mansion. I arranged to meet with them on the uppermost level of the observation tower on the church grounds. About time. The man appeared before me, a burlap sack slung over his shoulder. I'd ordered he use the sack, for he might be foolish enough to actually drag the old woman all the way here.
There is your witch.
He threw the bag to the ground, causing the woman inside to let out a muffled grunt. It didn't sound like an elderly woman's voice, though. This stench. Tell me, you didn't harm her, dog? I smell blood.
You only instructed me not to kill her. Mistakes were made. Limbs were lost.
Damn it.
I cleaned up all the blood I got on me. No one suspected anything.
It's even farther gone than I imagined. I should have been clear of my instructions. Though I suppose it doesn't matter much. She's not going to live long either way.
That you were able to immediately recognize it as matter of blood says quite a bit, Lord. You have killed her before, haven't you?
Enough yapping. She is alive, yes?
Of course.
Finding back a sigh, I tossed my gaze from the man to the bag. Felt slightly sorry for the woman, but the feeling didn't last long. I've seen too many bloody, mangled bodies, both dead and alive, to be faced by one more. He crouched down to untie the bag, and a young girl came tumbling free. It can't be. As soon as I saw her, I knew exactly who the girl was. It's been 4 years, but no length of time could wipe from my memory those patches on her face, and those breathtaking golden eyes. But why? How? What was she doing inside the bag? Why had I ordered her captured? How could I have done that? Morgana. She was pale as death, shaken visibly. Confusion seized me. A cloud of swirling darkness formed before my eyes. The first thought that came to my mind was that I had gotten the wrong person. I had only ordered her captured because I thought the witch by the lake was an old woman. If I'd known she was a young girl, let alone her, I would have never given the command. But those thoughts led nowhere. I was simply trying to avoid facing reality. Trying to place the blame on anyone but myself. I couldn't take back what had already been done. I couldn't change it. There she was, the girl who once won my affection, lying in a ball in this cold stone with an arm missing. It didn't matter how we had gotten here, or what I felt about her. There's no fixing what I had done. She looked up at me, at the source of the muttering above her. Her eyes were open and was frighteningly wide. They wandered aimlessly, unfocused to the point I wasn't sure she was seeing anything at all. I felt a tinge of madness in her.
Is that you?
The words spilled from her lips, so soft they barely reached my ears. Hardly a trace of the beautiful singing voice from my memory remained. It was hoarse and raspy, every sound seemingly laced with an unfathomable deep pitch black hatred for all existence. You remember me? Would she even be able to recognize me anymore?
How could I ever forget?
Morgana, she remembered me? The days we spent together. What kind of person I've been. The boys that refused to give up putting ointment on her face. All our friends. Those horribly unromantic encounters at the graveyard. Her taking shots at me taking shots at her. Did she really remember? All the time we had shared?
How could I ever forget? All the pain and the humiliation you put me through.
What?
How could I ever forget the blood savage you so loved to hold?
What? What was she talking about?
haven't had enough, have you? Leaving scars on every inch of my body wasn't enough for you? You haven't had your fill of my blood.
I couldn't even begin to process the words I was hearing. They were little more than angry, meaningless shouts crashing into me. And what the hell was she saying? Did she think I was someone else? Did she think I was him? That was Barnier? No, Morgana. That wasn't me. I was the man who had caused you so much agony.
Look at the girl. You would claim you haven't caused her pain.
You're the man that found me, cut me up, called me a witch, and then tried to kill me. I haven't forgotten you, even for a moment.
No, I was the man who rescued you from him, I wanted to shout. But I couldn't gather the strength to force up a single word. Only gasps of air came from my lips. It was like I'd been robbed of my voice.
I don't care how much my father preaches forgiveness. That's the one thing you'll never get from me. I despise you with all my soul. I revile you with every fiber of my being. For every scar you gave me, I give you a lifetime of hatred.
No, Morgana! When I finally managed to produce a sound, it was barely more audible than a whisper. In a frenzy, I made it to reach out for her, when I noticed a pair of narrow eyes glaring at me.
I was not aware you knew the Witch Lord.
Huh? Know her? I don't just know her. She's Morgana. She's the girl
Man, the Lord, he destroyed me, mind and body.
No!
She's not wrong.
That was another man.
You have become that man to her.
I am not Barnier.
Do you hear yourself, boy? You're the rightful heir to the Barnier name, are you not? That's what you said when you stole the throne from me.
Man, ruined my life.
How will you respond, boy? Will you say it wasn't you? Can you say it wasn't you? How will you convince her? She's clearly not in her mind. Would she even understand if you reveal the truth? Can you do that, knowing you won't make it through her? Will you tell her you're nothing more than a slumrat, a usurper? That you deceived your way into power? That everything you built up over those years was all a lie? That you killed your former friends for nothing? That Odilon died for nothing? That you endured betrayal after betrayal for nothing? Do you have the spine to say it, boy? All the sacrifices you made, all the pain you suffered to make it here, could all come crumbling down the moment you do. Will it be, false lord? Is the girl worth it? Is sharing the truth with its half-dead girl on the brink of madness worth losing everything you worked so hard to accomplish? Make your choice. What's the matter, Lord?
Yes, I know her. Or, I knew her years ago.
I see. What do you want to do then, Lord? You look sick.
What I want to do? Obviously, why? On Earth, this doesn't change anything. We lock the witch up and proceed as planned. Did I make this choice?
Congratulations, boy. Thus concludes your inheritance of the name Lord Barnier.
Morgana.
It wasn't until I lost everything that I truly understood just how blessed I had been. How much my time with them had allayed my wounded spirit, and how hard they had worked to mold me into an ordinary girl. That was all gone now. I may not have said as much, but I liked it there. I was quite fond of the tranquility. I didn't want to lose it. I wanted to be happy as much as anyone else. I'd lost track of how far I had walked. My legs were stiff and my knees didn't want to bend anymore. It took all my effort to remain upright. And I was certain I would never get back up if I did fall down. I still couldn't wrap my mind around what had happened. It was all so sudden, all so horribly senseless. It was so mind-bogglingly horrendous. Part of me refused to believe it was anything more than a bad dream. And that was what kept me walking. Because if I did accept it as reality, I would lose what remained of my will to live. It was supposed to be a party. The girls got together to celebrate my birthday. Making food and treats that, while hardly extravagant, were still a significant improvement over what we usually had. Everyone was laughing. Part of me was irritated by the whole affair, as I had never been comfortable in such a lively environment. They were celebrating me, my birthday. I should have been overjoyed. Maybe this was my punishment for being so unappreciative. As soon as I stepped out, bandits raided the brothel. Had I stayed there but a few minutes longer, things likely would have turned out quite differently. Whether for better or worse, I couldn't begin to guess, but at the very least, I probably wouldn't be here alone. I could have gone with them to the next life. During the raid, a man grabbed me, and I lost consciousness almost immediately after. When I awoke, I was in a foul-smelling carriage. People were packed into the carriage like livestock. There were dozens of them, every inch of usable space filled with a body. Looking out across the cramped space, I knew instinctively I was on my way to becoming a slave. Once I'd been sold off as a saint, a highly valuable commodity. But this time around, I was cheap, expendable labor. I was filled with an overwhelming emptiness as the realization struck. Something resembling sorrow wavered about in the void as well. But it wasn't a sadness for my own predicament. It broke my heart knowing I would never see them again. That everyone I had to thank for all those warm, peaceful days had either been killed or sold off. In time, the sadness swelled to form tears in my eyes. My whole life I had managed to endure without crying. And the first time I did, I shed tears for someone else. The man sitting next to me asked, "Why are you crying?" To which I answered, "I'm sad because I didn't get the chance to show my gratitude to people very dear to me." But if that had been the end of our conversation, I wouldn't be here, hobbling down this endless road alone. I wouldn't be covered in so much blood. Sometime after I had responded, the man suddenly stood up and murdered the guards and slave traders. At first, other slaves thought they were saved, and for a moment I believed so too. He was a very curious-looking man. His eyes smaller and narrower than ours, his nose a different shape. I had never seen anyone who looked like him before. All I knew was that he wasn't from around here. The man, wielding the sword stolen from a guard, searched through the slave trader's clothes for the keys to our shackles, which he gave to me and made me free his hands, before proceeding to kill the slaves. I stood aghast as the massacre unfolded before me. Blood pooled at my feet, severed limbs were strewn about the carriage. Bodies piled up haphazardly, many having only had enough time for their eyes to go wide in shock before being cut down. Men, women, children, everyone equals at the end of his blade. The strange-looking man laughed as he slaughtered the slaves. He laughed and he laughed like he was having the time of his life. And when he was done, he stepped out of the carriage and wandered off, leaving me alone, sole survivor. I had witnessed so much death in so short a time. Cruel, meaningless violence. Its victims powerless to resist. And here I stood among the bodies, left alive. For some inexplicable reason, left alive. The screams, the despairs, the pleas, the death, the laughter, all reverberating inside my head. Oh, Father, who art in heaven, please give me your mercy. I cannot take it anymore. I pray, free me from this pain. My spirit was about at its breaking point. I was certain I too would sink to the bottomless abyss if I kept all these emotions inside me much longer. I walked and I walked and walked and walked. No food, no water, my exhaustion at its peak, my mind in a complete haze. When, off in the distance, I caught sight of a lake. Oh, thirsty water. I began hobbling in the general direction of the lake, not caring that it took me off the main road. Bandits could have assailed me. Wild animals made me their prey. None of that mattered to me anymore. At least then I wouldn't have to walk anymore. But for better or worse, I made it to the lake unmolested. The water was clear as crystal and seemed to sparkle like one as well. As soon as was within reach, I dropped to my knees and drank, my thirst seemingly insatiable. The blood covering me had dried several days earlier, but its bitter stench lingered. So after a brief glance around my surroundings, I washed myself. The chill of the midwinter lake water and occasional gust of wind pierced me to my very bones. No one in their right mind would bathe in this weather. But common sense and the chattering of my teeth didn't stop me. I wanted only to be clean again, and the frigid water felt like it would strip everything away, leaving my body and spirit new and unsullied. Once I was satisfied, I came to the belated realization that a small cottage sat on the lakeside. There's smoke coming from the chimney. Maybe there's someone inside. It could be someone bad, though. Maybe it would be safer to stay away. But who knows when I might find someone else. Excuse me, is anyone there? Hello? The door's unlocked. It was so warm inside. The heat from the fire seeped into my chilled flesh, spreading slowly. I almost burst into tears again. Sitting before the fireplace was an old woman. A cauldron hung above the flames, bubbling with a curious colored liquid. "Ma'am?" The woman merely sat there, her head drooped. Slowly I approached her, half certain of what I would find, and placed my hand on her shoulder. She was dead, and I hardly so much as batted an eye at the sight of yet another corpse. In fact, she looked like she'd passed quite peacefully by comparison. How blessed she was. There was no sign bandits had been rooting through the cottage. Presumably, she had fallen asleep and passed away naturally while in the middle of concocting something. Looking around the room, I found myself surrounded by countless items I couldn't begin to identify. Plants of all colors hanging from the ceiling to dry. Berries crushed and stored in small glass bottles. Were I to guess, the old woman made her living off herbal medicines. Having gotten a good look around the room, I thought that perhaps I had been guided here. And if my father had led me to this place, he would not frown upon me for doing what was necessary to make use of it. So I dragged the old woman's corpse from the cottage and pushed it into the lake. If I didn't take up residence in the cottage, someone else eventually would. Or I'd just be left to deteriorate. And I would rather take the opportunity bestowed upon me to have a place to rest my weary soul. As the woman's body sank into the clear lake, a realization struck me. I hadn't crossed myself. A few days after I moved into the cottage, a man came to the door. Apparently, he had been a customer of the woman's, a witch by trade, and he was looking for more medicine. When I spoke to him through the door, he gave a short gasp and said,
"Who are you? Where's the witch?"
I am her granddaughter. She is not presently home."
Huh? Never knew the old lady had kids. So when she's gonna be back?
Not for some time.
Well, damn. Know much about herbs, girl?
What?
So I can get my medicine, I don't really care who supplies it. You, her, doesn't matter, I'll still pay.
One moment, please. My knowledge of herbology was essentially non-existent. But if there is a possibility I can make a living off it, there is no reason for me not to try. I asked the man to give me as much information about the herbs he had been receiving, color, texture, smell, anything, and rummaged about until I found something that fit the description. The entire exchange occurred through the barely cracked door. The man paid me as promised, but I quickly realized that money wasn't of much use to me, as I had no intention of returning to the city. So I told him that in the future, I would trade for supplies, which he happily agreed to. A few days later, another man called upon the cottage. But unlike the first man, he sounded crude and uncivilized. I didn't want to cut off a potential source of supplies, though, so I handed him the medicine he requested. But when I did, he let out a low snicker and said,
What do you say I look after you, girlie?
He then shoved his hand through the crack on the door and grabbed my wrist.
You ain't fooling me. The ex dancing's just you, ain't it? Little girl like you needs someone to look after her. Make sure no bad men threaten ya.
Every word that came from his mouth oozed with sleaze. I knew what would happen if he got the door open. Let go!
Whoa!
I yanked my arm back with all my strength, slammed the door shut, and set the bar. But even that wasn't enough to quell my uneasiness, so I put a chair against it as well. The man pounded on the door, each slam of his fist causing the whole room to vibrate.
React much, huh, girlie? Come on, open up! I still ain't paid you yet. Buy something real nice, too.
Ew.
Open up. I want you to have it.
I don't need your payment. I am never doing business with you again, so please get off my property.
Want to say that again? You got a lot of nerve, you little bitch. Open the damn door. You don't want to know what happened to you, you don't. Got more for sale than just a bag of leaves, don't ya? Open the fucking door!
Just stay quiet, Morgana. The best way to handle people like him is just to not respond.
Good for nothing, you. One day, you'll learn your lesson. So I'll eat a little girly like you right up.
After giving the door one final parting kick, the man stormed off, loudly grumbling about how stupid and ungrateful I was the whole while. I didn't deserve a word of his cursing. But at the same time, I couldn't bring myself to be upset about it. He was right. The world would not be kind to a young girl living on her own. Not so long as men like him roamed free. I paced before the fireplace, my mind racing. I can't be sure I'm safe anywhere, not even here. But going back to the city isn't an option. Not while the Lord lives to keep throwing his blood sabbats. Everyone who might have protected me is gone. I have to make it on my own now. I'll have to be very careful about opening the door. I could be attacked again, or worse. I mean, most men would probably run as soon as they saw my face. But most doesn't mean all. There are some out there who'll go after anyone. I can't let my guard down while I'm doing business, not even for a second. Man or woman, everyone is a potential threat. I'll make it on my own. I don't need anyone else. Me, and only me. Being out here has really shown me just how sheltered I was at the brothel, how kind everyone was, how peaceful my life was. I just want to go back. No, stop it, Morgana. You're stronger than that. I put enough wood on the fire for it to last the whole night, and I curled up into a ball and slept beside it. For the first time in my life, solitude frightened me.
Nika. I think it's Morgana's mother.
Oh. What? Were you planning to sleep all day? Come on. You're not Sharon.
Oh. Oh, crap. About time. Good morning. What of it remains anyway. What's with that look? Still waking up?
What are you doing here?
Excuse me? Why would I not be here?
That doesn't answer my question. How did you even...
Little bird told me where to find you.
You survived?
Do I look dead to you?
No, but... Still, you... I thought you were killed during the raid.
It'd be good at sort of someone, but you know I'm no pushover. I was gonna let a bunch of bandits get the best of me. What? Were you worried? Seriously? Here I thought you knew how to do was damn me to the fires of hell.
Was I worried? Of course I was, you oblivious dolt! I never actually meant it when I said you should be cast into hell. Of course I want to see you alive. Of course. It would hurt me to lose you.
Sorry, that was calculus of me.
I was afraid I would never see you again. I thought I had lost everything. Everyone. I was scared to death.
Whoa, no need to cry. You're tougher than that.
I'm not crying.
If you say so.
What do you mean I'm tougher than that? What do you think I am? Made of stone? First you try to pretend I'm a normal girl, and now you act like I'm some kind of heartless creature. Make up your mind already.
I'm sorry. Really. You're a perfectly ordinary girl, Morgana.
Can you say that looking at my face?
I'm looking at it right now.
Even though I'm a mean-spirited, bitter little girl.
Even though you're a mean-spirited bitter little girl. No, it's nice you acknowledge it.
I'll burn in hell. Say, I want to ask you something. And I want you not to call me weak for it this time.
Let's hear it.
Will you stay with me? I don't want to be alone anymore. It terrifies me.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll stay right here forever.
You know you won't be able to accomplish your dreams out here, right? And you're fine with that?
You bet. You told me to stay, and stay I will. I live right here on a lake. There's some mountains nearby. All things considered, it's not a bad location. Plant some crops, go fishing in the lake, sprawl in the grass under the starry sky. Sounds like a pretty good life to me. I mean, sometimes you could sing a little song. And I'll sit there, listening quietly. Or you want some accompaniment, I can procure some instruments. Sounds nice to you as it does to me. Nothing? Seriously? What else could you want? How about...
No. That's more than enough. Yes, if I could have a life like that, it will have made every misfortune in my life worth suffering. He's not here. It was a dream. What else could it have been? He's dead, just like everyone else. They all died in the raid. And even if he was alive, he wouldn't come looking for me. What a childish dream. Fight it, Morgana. You cannot cry over a simple dream. You are the daughter of God. Your tears are only to be shed for others, not yourself. I don't think it's picking me up.
No, it's not picking you up.
Sorry. I'm too shy. I can't do the crying. I'm so sorry. I pounded my fists against the floor again and again, sobbing like a petulant child. I had never cried like this before. Not as I witnessed men, women, and children being slaughtered, Not when I was taken from my home. Not when I was chained up and tortured by the Lord. It wasn't until I realized just how much I needed that warmth. And that I would never have it again. That my spirit hit rock bottom. Finding and then losing happiness hurt worse than anything else. I wish I'd never known happiness. I wish no one had ever shown me kindness. None of it means I have to go through this. I wish I'd never known what it was like to be normal. I could have just stayed the daughter of God my whole life. And then I wouldn't be feeling like this. I never knew crying like that was so exhausting. And I never want to experience it again. I want to go back to who I used to be. A saint. If I didn't know happiness, I wouldn't have to feel like this. I just have to forget it all. That part of my life, it never happened. No peace, no rest, only trials from my father. That is all I've ever known. It's not hard. Just don't think about those years. Then you won't have to cry like this ever again. It's for the best. It's my only choice. See, I was always right. I never was and never will be normal. Only once He will offer me salvation. Our God, or one of His angels. And so I did precisely that. I led a solitary life. I did all my business hidden behind the cottage door. And I sent away anyone who wasn't here for medicine. Once, a mountain man in armor rode up to the cottage. He looked like a knight, but I had no interest in getting involved with anyone who went around carrying weapons. I was responsible for my own safety, so I had to be careful of who I opened my door to. I had to be extra careful about who I dealt with. But I didn't feel sad or lonely about it. By making that my normal, there was nothing to lament. Which meant old memories served no purpose but to cause me pain. So I endeavored to push them far, far away into the depths of my mind. I couldn't simply discard my memories of what the Lord had done to me, of course, or of all the wonderful people I had met at the brothel. But as time trekked on, they faded into almost nothing. I couldn't describe what any one person's voice sounded like, how they acted around me, what kind of person they were. The things we did together, what they looked like, what their name was, anything of importance. I knew good and well it was callous to forget about all the people who had shown me so much kindness and warmth. But I would never see them again, and thinking about them only brought me pain. So there was no point in remembering. That was all I could do to make it by. Nearly 4 years had passed since I assumed the role of the Lakeside Witch. My 16th birthday was approaching, but my age was perhaps the only thing I had in common with an ordinary teenage girl. Although if I had grown up like any other girl, having spent my childhood as a saint before being held captive by the Lord and made to witness countless people's deaths, that would probably mean there was something deeply wrong with me. At that point, a terrible cynicism has taken root in my heart. I built high walls around myself, keeping my contact with the outside world as tense and pragmatic as possible. With each passing day, my voice grew more monotonous. my interactions following a well-rehearsed script. My customers didn't make any attempt to force their way into my shell either. I'd begun to suspect they might think me not a witch by trade, but that I had actually formed a pact with the devil and worked his dark magic. No one said as much, but I could sense what seemed to be fear in their voices when they came to me. On the other hand, I never had anyone else try to force themselves into the cottage like the man 4 years earlier, so I would say I had a rather peaceful life. If you considered a life in which no one wanted anything to do with you peaceful, that is. I had also come to learn a fair bit about herbology. I could now make my own medicines rather than just making do with what was already here when I moved in. Although a fair bit still amounted to almost nothing when compared to what my predecessor was capable of. Nonetheless, I had a relatively solid grasp on what herbs to use to treat different symptoms. Enough to formally assume the name of the late side witch, at least. And so, time flowed on, uneventful and quiet, until one day when a young man showed up at my door.
Excuse me, is anyone home?
Wait, Jordan, you played his character.
Excuse me. Is anyone home?
A little higher pitch.
Oh, higher pitch?
Yes.
Okay. Excuse me. Is anyone home?
I knew right away that he was a new customer. No one who had traded with me before bothered with such pleasantries anymore. They wanted the process to be quick and frictionless. And I preferred it that way as well. Who's there? When I responded from behind the door, he seemed to be taken aback. After several moments with no answer, I tensed up slightly and repeated the question.
Ah. My sister has fallen very ill, and she desperately needs medicine.
He has a very pretty voice.
I was told the person who lives here is a skilled herbalist. Could I please get something to treat her?
Her symptoms.
She has got an extremely high fever that won't come down. She has no appetite. She's only drinking water. She can't get out of bed.
Everyone always seems to be looking for medicine for themselves. I haven't had a customer like him in some time now. We're going to want to lower the fever first. After that, get her on a nutritious diet. I'm going to give you 2 medications. Give her the first while her fever is high, and then the second after it's come down.
Thank you very much.
When was the last time someone thanked me? Here's your medicine. It's powdered, so mix it with some water and have your sister drink it.
Not going to open the door wider?
Is that necessary?
Oh, sorry. Just a second. Let me get you your money.
I take supplies for my services, not money.
Oh, I didn't realize. I'm so sorry. This is all I have on me today. Would you maybe be willing to accept this as payment today?
Very well. Is that a gold coin? Those herbs aren't worth nearly this much. Just who is this man? And what on earth is he doing here at a witch's cottage? In any other situation, I wouldn't have even been tempted to look. What if he saw me? He would think me disgusting, ridicule me like everyone else. It didn't hurt knowing what people thought of me, but it was hardly pleasant hearing it vocalized either. And what if he decided to do something in that moment I dropped my guard? He could force the door open, have his way with me. He doesn't seem like that kind of man, though. Trust is about the farthest thing from my mind when interacting with people these days. I always remain on high alert, keeping a safe distance from everyone, no matter how good they appeared on the surface. But for some reason, I felt strangely comfortable in this young man's presence. At the time, I couldn't have explained why. But in retrospect, I imagine it was largely a result of his upbringing. He spoke in a clear, well-enunciated voice. He had a polite, friendly air about him, which I could feel even through the door. It wasn't the sort of well-mannered you could fake with a bit of practice, nor the sort you encountered in the middle of nowhere. Curiosity took a hold of me. I had to know what he looked like. I wasn't going to throw the door open, of course, and I had no intention of inviting him in either. I just wanted to get a little peek at him through the crack in the door. So I opened it ever so slightly wider than usual when I reached out to take his payment.
Ah!
Oh no, he saw me.
Wow. I didn't think you would be so young. I guess you were a little older.
What?
Thank you for doing business with me. And I'm sorry for not coming prepared. If I need any more, be sure to bring supplies next time.
Alright.
Again, I really appreciate it. Have a nice day.
Too. He saw my face, and he wasn't disgusted. He actually smiled. I was so caught off guard that I thought for a second that maybe my face had healed. So I ran over to the water basin, and a glimmer of hope in my heart gazed in at my reflection. But the face looking back at me was the same as always, a grotesque, unsightly, patchy mess. Part of me was disappointed, but more than anything, I was flabbergasted by what had just happened. How could he smile at the sight of the face? For a split second, my mind slipped back in time 4 years. The man who had applied ointment to my face, he had never seemed disturbed by my appearance either. Not long afterwards, the young man called upon my cottage again. He said that the medicine had briefly relieved his sister's symptoms, but that it had failed to actually cure what ailed her. Herbal medicine required patience and persistence before its effects manifested, I informed him, to which he responded with a sad smile. He was a handsome young man, not far from what I imagined from his voice. And the smile suited him quite well. There was a distinct elegance emanating from him. Ragged clothing aside, he was about how I envisioned a fairy tale prince might look. Though I knew quite well those only existed in fiction. Real nobles were terrible, miserable, reprehensible people. After a few visits, we started having little conversations outside of our business transactions. He told me his name, Mel, as well as his sister's, Nellie, and I told him mine. Mel was 17, only a year older than me. Then one day, he invited me outside for a walk.
Keep going, Jordan.
Wait, is this the same guy?
17-year-old, yeah.
Yep, same 17-year-old.
Okay. Okay, it's not healthy to stay holed up inside all the time. You've got this beautiful lake right here. What do you say we can take a little walk around the shoreline?
I was going to turn him down, but my mouth seemed to disagree with my mind, and the next thing I knew, I was taking a walk with someone for the first time in years. Although with might be something of a stretch, I kept a safe distance from him as we walked. Mel seemed disappointed with my unwillingness to get any closer, but I couldn't bring myself to trust him that much yet. Nevertheless, it was a momentous enough occasion that I just felt justified describing it as such. I'm sure I made him uncomfortable on numerous occasions during our walks. To say I acted disagreeably would be an understatement. Anytime he closed the gap between us, I stepped a little farther away. Every response I gave was curt, and I repeatedly shot him down whenever he started getting wistful or sentimental. The Morgana 4 years prior might have been a little softer with him, a little more human. Maybe she would have given him a little smile or a pout instead. But that girl was long gone. I despised the humanity that had once started taking root in me, and I endeavored to be something different again. In one instance, he heard a robin chirping and said, "If I had wings like a bird, maybe I could be free too," to which I responded, "There's not a single creature living in this world that is free."
What?
Birds regularly get shot down by hunters or preyed on by larger birds. The idea that they are free is nothing more than man's short-sighted delusion.
Sorry. I guess.
No, I should be apologizing. I wasn't trying to attack you. I simply lack the ability to properly empathize with others. I do not understand people. So please, if I say anything that upsets you or make you uncomfortable, don't assume that was my intention.
Sure. Maybe you're hiding it, or maybe you just don't know it yet. But I think you've got more empathy than you're letting on. Surely, you can't say nothing affects you at all. Human.
At one point, that was true. Though it was perhaps somewhat difficult for others to see. I felt great beauty in the world when I knelt before the gravestones, but such sentiments have long since been lost to me.
So, don't have to be so closed off. Might not be able to do much for you, but I do want to get to know you better. I want to understand you. So, if you ever feel like talking about yourself, just know that you've got an eager pair of ears here. Okay?
If there was ever someone who could understand me, if there were ever someone who could understand what I am now, who could empathize with me, who had been through trials as great as mine, they would not be human.
What do you mean?
That you would need to be far removed from any idea of humanity to have a chance of understanding me.
Huh.
Regardless, I do appreciate your kind words.
Sure. So, out of curiosity, do you have anyone, really important to you in your life?
Not at the moment.
Yes. Does that mean you used to? I'd love to hear about them, if you don't mind.
They're all long dead.
Ugh.
4 years ago, something unpleasant occurred. And as a result of that, I was forced to part ways with the people who taught me that humans have the capability for kindness.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Well then, if your sister's condition worsens again, come see me. Farewell.
Hey, maybe we could walk a little slower next time, so we have more time to talk. I want to get to know you better.
I'll consider it.
Yes. All right.
So long.
Bye. See you soon.
I was conscious of how cold and distant I had been towards him, but I had no interest in changing anything. Not that I even knew how to anymore. I had never known particularly well how to choose the right words, the proper way to act in various circumstances. What little knowledge I had possessed, I'd long since lost. I assumed, after the things I'd said to him, Mel would never ask me on another walk again. But I was wrong. He did the very next time he came for medicine, and every time after that as well.
Hey, so I was thinking, I bet you'd make a really good singer if you wanted.
A singer?
Yeah. You've got this really pretty voice. I think it'd be nice if you tried using it to sing. I'm sorry. It's not my place to tell you what to do. You hardly talk. Why would I think you'd want to sing?
I'm glad we're on the same page. Never again.
Sorry about that. Really. Anyway, I wonder who first came up with the idea to sing. You can brighten someone's day, or sour their mood with just the sound of your voice. Kinda amazing, don't you think? It's almost like magic. Oh, and there are battle songs too, for getting soldiers fired up for combat.
Battle? Now there's a word I never expected to hear from you.
I mean, I am a guy. I admire anyone who has the strength to go to battle. I could never do it myself, though. The sight of blood makes me sick, and I barely know which end of a sword you're supposed to grab.
You're a noble, aren't you? What need do you have for knowing how to use a sword?
That's what I used to think too. But now I think I should have gotten training. I may not have been a soldier, but I needed to be strong. I could have avoided so much if I was. And Nellie wouldn't have to live in a rundown shack in the middle of nowhere.
As I recall, he said once that he was forced from his house after a dispute over who the rightful heir was. High society sounds like endless fun.
I'm sorry. I'm sure you don't care about any of this.
No, you're fine. I'm the one who asked.
Thanks. I want you to know, I really do appreciate it. It's nice to just be able to talk about this stuff to someone.
You're naturally sociable. I'm sure you can find plenty of other people willing to listen.
I don't get into town much. Not even to run errands. So I'm still kind of an outsider. You're my only friend right now. I hope that wasn't too presumptuous of me.
Call me whatever you like.
Oh, thank goodness. We should do this more often. Really. Talk more, get to know each other better, become better friends.
To what end?
When just, I think friends is better than being alone. That's all.
I see. I'll be heading back in now. See you. Again.
Yeah. See you soon, Morgana.
Little by little, his words were getting closer to reaching the old me. Not enough to provoke an actual response, of course. But that wasn't his fault. I had locked myself up too deeply. I no longer knew how to express emotions, especially those that resulted from human warmth. However, I'd regained enough of something to feel sort of nostalgia in my interactions with Mel. And I thought perhaps with time, I could go back to who I had been 4 years prior. But shortly thereafter, he threw all that into the wind with a single utterance.
Take anything at this point to make her better. I'll even take a miracle if I can get one.
He appeared exhausted that day, much more than usual. His sister's condition had begun to worsen again. That one muttered word set off a spark in my mind. It sent me back in time well beyond when I was taught humanity 4 years ago, to my very origin. I was the daughter of God. My blood had healing properties. And the instant I remembered that, there was only one course of action I could take. Without a moment's hesitation, I informed him that miracles did exist, that I had been born a saint, and that my blood had miraculous powers. That after leaving the village of my birth, my power had only ever been misused. First by the Lord for his sick banquets, then by me for letting it lay idle for so long. Now was the time for me to correct. He was a kind-hearted young man who loved his sister, who deserved this blessing more than them. I told him everything. At first, he was surprised, but never once did he accuse me of lying. He listened carefully and intently, taking in every word. And when I was finished, he said he believed me. He said he would entrust his sister's care to me. Mel's sister slept upon a simple bed. She was a sweet little girl who looked like she would have been quite spirited if not for her ailment. Both she and her brother had beautiful flaxen hair. They looked as if they had both been yanked from a painting. Seeing them there, I wanted to do everything I could to help them. to ensure their happiness. And I knew I had the ability to do so. No longer would I be the one receiving others' charity. I could be the one giving it again. And so I made a new cut on my mostly healed arm. For the briefest of moments, a flash of him applying ointment appeared in my mind, but I quickly cast it off. The flaxen-haired girl showed signs of recovering as a result of my miracle. The boy came to my cottage, overjoyed to thank me. I was extremely proud of myself. I felt like, for once, I'd actually saved someone's life. I had finally been able to use my gift to help someone truly good. After the miracle, though, he stopped referring to me as his friend. Understandably so. No one could think of themselves as equals with someone who performed miracles. No one could think of themselves as equals with someone who performed miracles. Awe, fear, reverence, they're all feelings that came from the same place. An inability to think of me as human who experienced the world the same way he did. He saw me as abnormal. I had always been fine with that. It was how it was supposed to be. Being different was what I always wanted, and in some way, it was what had kept me going. So seeing him put more and more distance between us shouldn't have bothered me in the slightest. But I continued to offer his sister my blood, no matter how distant he grew. Eventually, he stopped inviting me on walks. But that didn't matter. I would serve my duty and perform miracles regardless. He would simply knock on my cottage door and say,
My sister's fallen ill again. Would you come perform another miracle?
I could hear the apprehension in his voice. No longer did he show me his gentle smile. No longer did we listen to the birds singing together. No longer was I the one being cold and distant. And no longer did he say, "See you again," when we parted ways. Back in my village, when everyone feared and revered me as a saint, it filled me with a childish sense of superiority. But there was no superiority now. Only a prickling in the softened shell of my heart. I was no longer the child I'd once been. I had changed. I had learned what warmth felt like. My memories of that time were vague and ethereal, but the feelings they had created lived on, deep within me. For a time I had felt a warm familiarity around Mel, which only made me yearn for him to treat me that way again. I wanted to be able to open up to someone once more, though I never said as much out loud. Gloomy day after gloomy day passed, and then I received a new visitor. I asked them their business from behind the door, but they hesitated for a few moments before responding. My instincts told me that whoever it wasn't the noble boy. So I waited, perplexed and slightly on edge, for them to say something. And when they finally did, I was left aghast at what I heard.
Are you the witch with the miracle blood?
Why did he sound like the man who had slaughtered the slaves in the carriage, laughing all the while? What was he doing at my cottage? I thought he had wandered off somewhere, never to be seen again. I thought he was out of my life for good. Why did he call me a witch? And how did he know my blood had powers? Had Mel told him? Or maybe his talkative little sister had gone running around babbling about it. I should have been clearer with them. Made absolutely certain they knew to keep their mouths shut. Please leave. It took all my strength to get those 2 words out without my voice shaking. I could hear the screams from 4 years ago, echoing in my mind. I could see their limbs flying, the blood pooling at my feet. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it pulsating in my ears. Please, stay away from my home. After all that time I spent forgetting about everything, closing myself off, finally finding peace. Why did this monster, who reminded me only of senseless violence and death, have to come back into my world? I never wanted to go through anything like that again.
Are you in need of your blood? Could you not spare a little?
I have nothing to spare for a man like you. My blood is only for the sick and needy. So please, go away. Stay away from me, I'm begging you. Get away from this place. You're a murderer. I want nothing to do with you. So please, just go away.
As you say.
Is he gone? Oh, thank heavens. My eyes feel like they're burning. No, Morgana, you have to be strong. You cannot let this get to you. Be strong. You have nothing to fear. Nothing to fear. No, stop. Fight it back. I swore never to cry again. But the moment fear released its grip on me, everything that had built up came pouring out in a hot stream. Tears soaked my face. I wiped, and still my hands came back wet. With each passing second, I felt myself reverting to an ordinary, helpless little girl. No, that's what I had always been. My whole life I had just been putting on airs, when in reality I wasn't even strong enough to withstand a little fright. Even with the horrid man gone, I couldn't rest easy. I couldn't be sure if he was gone for good. Maybe he was just waiting for a more opportune moment to target me again. The following day, I took a brief walk with the noble boy, but I couldn't bring myself to talk to him about what had happened. With how much distance he was keeping between us, I doubted he would be willing to do anything to help. For 3 days and 3 nights, I shook in terror, thinking, considering, speculating, wondering, hardly getting a wink of sleep. I was too anxious to sit still, so I paced in circles around the chair by the fireplace. It's too soon to be sure I'm safe. Can't go outside unless I absolutely must. Not even just to get water from the lake. He could be waiting in the shadows to take my life. I'm not safe here anymore. I shouldn't have said anything about my powers. They've only ever brought me trouble. I should probably find somewhere else to live. But where? How far could I even get on my own? He could be out there, waiting for me to open the door. I would need help. Don't be a fool. No one's going to help me. The boy barely even wants to talk to me anymore. All I wanted was a quiet life. Is it him? Did he return? Calm yourself. He knocked harder than that. It's not him. Who's there?
It's me.
His sister needs more of my blood.
I'm not here about Nellie today. I'm sorry for being so distant lately.
What?
I want to talk things over.
He's finally reconsidered. If he can treat me like a friend again, then maybe I could ask him. I want to talk to you too. I opened the door without a second thought. I let my guard drop, because in my mind the flaxen-haired boy briefly took the place of the slave man from the brothel. The man who had saved me from the terrible lord offered me his hand, guided me into the light, and here he was again to set me free. To take me away from this place, take me somewhere new. He had pulled me out of the darkest depths of despair, and here he was again, ready to offer me his hand. A glimmer of hope to cast away the shadows, so I reached out to take it. And my arm went tumbling to the ground, my hope following not far behind. Oh, my arm.
Morgana?
What do you mean, take it? What do you mean? What do you mean? Why my arm? Why are you taking? Why? How could you betray me like that? How could you? I opened the door. You said you wanted to talk. So what is this man doing here? Why would you bring him here? How could you do this to me? What does he mean you're a share? Is it just easier for you to take the whole arm than coming back and asking me for help? Is that what I thought? You were a good person. I thought you were a good person. I trusted you. I believed in you. I opened the door for you because I thought you wanted to talk. I trusted you. I trusted you. I trusted you. I thought you were a good person, a nice man, a nice man. I would have given you and your sister as much blood as you needed. You just had to. I would have come. You didn't have to do this. You didn't have to. I would have helped whenever you needed it.
Swordsman?
Nothing personal. I just need your blood. Without it, she'll lose her church. She needs the money. And I needed some way of getting enough money to keep her church running. So the Lord made me an offer.
Lord, why him again?
If I brought him the witch with the miracle blood, he would finance a whole new church for her. So don't take it personally. You get to be a sacrifice, To keep her church from collapsing. To keep her world from collapsing. So don't take it personally, witch. Cheers! Saint's blood and good fortune to all. You're a damn witch wearing a saint skin!
Oh, I'm not a witch. After cutting off my left arm, the strange-looking man stuffed me into a sack and tied me up and threw me over his shoulder and carried me away somewhere. And while he was walking, he muttered at me over his shoulder, explaining where we were going. Apparently a new church run by someone called a saintess. And she was going to give my blood to patrons of the church, saying it was some kind of miracle elixir. But what was this nameless nun doing calling herself a saintess when I was the real saint? And why did I have to be the witch sacrifice for her sake? It didn't make any sense. And most of all, why was the Lord involved? Why did that vicious, cruel, horrible, miserable man have to come back into my life? Why couldn't he just leave me alone? Was that really so hard? Why? He already had his way with me. He had his terrible banquets, his blood sabbats already. What did he need more of my blood? Hadn't he already had enough? Did he find out I had real power, so he just decided to come back for more? Was that it? He could have just called me the saintess instead of her. He didn't have to make me into a witch. Oh, it's because of my face, isn't it? He wanted a pretty face to put on his brand new church, not an ugly scarred face like mine. But that's all. She's just pretty. I can perform miracles, but I'm here with my arm cut off and stuffed in a bag. Even slaves are treated better than this. All they wanted was a quiet life. I have this power, so I just wanted to use it to help. That's all. Oh, Father, your trial is too great. I can't bear it any. I wasn't born to spend my whole life suffering.
About time.
There's your witch.
Tell me you didn't harm her, dog. I smell blood.
You only instructed me not to kill her. Mistakes were made. Limbs were lost. I cleaned up all the blood I got on me. No one suspected anything. That you were able to immediately recognize it as smell of blood says quite a bit, Lord. You have killed before, haven't you?
Enough yapping. She is alive, yes?
Of course.
No tears. Now that's a good girl. If something would have been the same, you cried and blubbered like a lowly slave or a whore. Dignified and saintly, that's what I need you to be. Keep going, Avalon.
Oh, come, bitch. You'll be giving your blood to all my people now, not only me.
Thank you.
Oh, do you remember me? What an honor, a truly splendid honor.
How
could... Oh, sorry.
How could I ever forget? How could I ever forget? All the pain and humiliation you put me through. How could I ever forget the blood sabbats you left to hold? Haven't had enough, have you? Leaving scars on every inch of my body wasn't enough for you? You haven't had your fill of my blood.
I'm thrilled to know the great saint remembers the lavish parties I threw for her. I take it they left quite an impression then.
You're the man who bound me, cut me up, called me a witch, and then tried to kill me. I haven't forgotten you even for a moment.
That's splendid to hear. I'm sure you tried so very hard to cast my memory aside. But you never could you? And you know what that means? at the scars I left all over you. Run deeper than anything else you've ever experienced. Look at that face, so twisted and hideous. I bet you loathe me. That you'll never be able to forgive me.
I don't care how much my father preaches forgiveness. That's the one thing you'll never get from me. I despise you with all my soul. I revile you with every fiber of my being. For every scar you gave me, I give you a lifetime of hatred. Never, you will never have my forgiveness. This man, the Lord, he destroyed me, mind and body. This man ruined my life.
I see. So I'm the one who ruined your life. And why should that concern me? Your words are as insignificant as the chirps of a dying robin. Scream and shout until your throat goes sore.
It doesn't change anything. We lock the witch up and proceed as planned.
Oh, Father, God of heaven and earth, my life is becoming nothing, shattered and empty.
Attendant Jordan.
Good day, Lord Barnier.
Not hungry. Need some time to rest, so don't bother me.
Yes, sir.
And make sure everyone knows they're to stay away from my room.
By your command, my lord.
Why? Why would she be the lakeside witch? How could this happen? There must be something I can do. Some way to fix this. No, don't fool yourself, you damn buffoon. There's no fixing that. Her arm's been cut off. Her mind broken. If only that Far Eastern dog had been such a damn idiot. She might actually be in proper shape. Fucking fuck! I don't want to give that order. The only one to blame for this is me. I can spend all goddamn day regretting it, but there's no taking back what's already been done. God damn it! What the hell am I supposed to do? What can I do? If I could set her free. And a doctor, yes, find a good doctor. There's no getting her arm about. He could at least patch her up. This is all my fault. So I'll do right by her. Look after her myself. Make sure she's taken care of for the rest of her life. Are you out of your mind, Jacobo? Why would she ever want to stay with you? Damn it. Can you stay focused?
What is there to think about, boy? You already know what you must do.
Get out of here, spirit! When you learn your damn lessons, just stay dead! Damn it! The last thing I need is a pathetic ghost constantly sticking his nose in my business.
Strong words for the man who can't even keep his head in the presence of said pathetic ghost. The answer is plain as day, boy. You proceed exactly as planned. Make witch's blood into a miracle egg elixir and distribute it at the church. You'll take in tithes, as well as winning the people's favor for supporting their new beloved church. It's a fine scheme. I'm impressed you came up with it, boy.
Silence! That was before I knew she was the witch.
What does it matter? The girl's going to be dead soon regardless. Progress and growth, it always comes at a price. You need simply accept that the price has already been paid. Tell me, is the girl worth throwing the entire venture aside? Knowing you'll lose all the goodwill you made, oh my god, to gain from it and more?
She's Morgana. She's my.
A child could tell you which has more value. You bear the weight of this entire land, boy. Don't try to cast that aside because you killed one little girl.
She isn't dead. She's still.
Surely you can't call that living.
She's not.
She is, and you killed her.
I did not!
There is no turning back. Why are you so upset about this, boy? Countless slaves have perished at your command. You had the slum rats who tried to bite you slaughtered. And only now are you concerned about another's life? Surely you're not still clinging to your naive sentimentality, are you? Oh, but she's different from those disposable sacks of flesh. She's dear to me. We have so many wonderful memories together. I love her.
Enough.
You've come too far to step down from the throne. No matter how much you may have cared for the girl before, it's out of the question now. You cannot have her. When a nobleman marries, it's for political purposes. Be it connections, resources, appearances, always something to gain. Taking a nameless peasant girl will make you the laughing stock of the land. So lock her up and drain her until there's nothing left.
Shut your damn mouth, accursed spirit! You don't have any idea what you're talking about. You don't know the first thing about how I feel about her. The things we shared. Wait a minute. What's going on? How the hell do you know any of that?
Took you long enough, boy.
How did I not realize? You never the kind of man.
To speak of progress and growth? That I wasn't.
What the hell? What are you?
I've already told you. I am the curse known as the Lord of the Land. Or if you need me to put it in simple terms for your simple mind, I am your sickness.
You're out of your mind. I am not sick.
I'm not the one who's out of his mind, boy. This is a world of madness and disease, but not of spirits. A throne drives all who sit upon it to madness. Powers or sanity, a man can only have one. And all the faster will his grasp on his mind slip when he has no one at his side to shield him from his enemies. I am not Jean-Francois Barnier, and there is no way for you to banish this spirit. Your mind is broken, on the verge of collapse. And there is nothing you can do to stop it!
No. No, 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 no! You're lying! My mind is not broken. I am perfectly sane. There's not a grain of madness in me. Shit. Maria?
Tell me, Jacobo, is this the power you always thought?
Oh. Is that what you spent day and night fighting to achieve? What? How are you? I thought you wanted power in order to protect those you cared most about. But here you are, using that power to destroy their lives. Or is it Power. The only thing you care about protecting anymore. Shut up. Is that what I took up to play for all those years ago? Enough. You don't have any place criticizing me. You're just a stupid child with his head in the clouds. Who thinks he can become some kind of hero. If you hadn't been so foolish, I wouldn't be in this place at all. You're right. We chose the wrong path. And there's no way for us to get back on the right one any longer. This wasn't what I had wanted at all. The future I had dreamed of. The outcome I hoped for. But who did I even have to explain that to? Who wouldn't even understand if I tried? There were walls as high as the eyes could see on both sides of this path. Forward was the only way I could go. I killed my old friends and comrades. Lost everything along the way. But still, I had marched on. Because this was all I could do. And now, power was the only thing that remained in my hands. So I wouldn't make a despot of myself. Bury all my feelings for her. Continue my march straight into hell. I had no other choice.